Reddit, what's a weird habit of yours you didn't think was weird until someone mentioned it? Before we start, don't forget to subscribe to the channel so you don't miss the next videos. I wish you a pleasant viewing experience. Story 1. Shared a hotel with a buddy during a trip, and he told me I sleep like I'm embalmed, arms crossed, on my back, stiff as a board. Story 2. I sniff every cup before I use it. Don't know why. Burrowing in my sleep as well. I have to have my head covered for me to be comfortable. Didn't think it was weird until a college roommate pointed out that he always could tell when I was going to sleep because I just put my pillow or my covers over my head beforehand. I've had people come into my room when I'm asleep and thought nobody was there, so I guess it's a nice defense mechanism against predators. Story 3. Eating kiwi fruit with its skin until I saw my friends eating without its skin. Then I turned on the incognito mode and searched how to eat kiwi. Story 4. If I bump an object into a wall, or a table, etc., I say ouch for that object. Not sure when I began doing it, and obviously I know my toothbrush didn't feel pain when I hit the faucet with his head, but I can stop myself from saying ouch on the toothbrush behalf. Story 5. I sometimes use my tongue like a CD slot when eating chips. Didn't even realize I was doing this until my friend suddenly burst out laughing while we were hanging out. Story 6. When I was 12, I used to suck in and bite the insides of my cheeks. A teacher at school saw it and copied me as a joke. I saw how stupid it looked and never did it since. Edit, RIP inbox. Story 7. One of my favorite snacks growing up was cold canned green beans. My mom would just open the can and hand me a fork. I continued eating them like that until my sophomore year of university, when my roommates just stared at me and pointed out how strange it was. I just thought that was the only way to eat green beans. Answer: there was a wine and a pairing I had out at dinner that I could not finish because it tasted exactly like drinking from a freshly opened can of green beans. So while I was appalled by your answer at first, you'll be happy to know that your dream wine is out there somewhere. I think it was called Brunaire or Grunaire or something, but I am not one of those people who you should trust about wine. Story 8. I consume everything quickly. I never really gave it any thought until I was having dinner with a friend, and he told me I ate like someone that just got out of prison or boot camp. Answer: in my early childhood, I experienced starvation and malnourishment. I got adopted, and growing up in my adopted family, I used to be the slowest eater. I think is because I stopped being hungry after eating half my plate BC. That's what I had been used to. Well, now as an adult, I've gotten much better about eating faster, to the point my sister always says, slow down, no one's gonna take your food away from you. It's weird. My relationship with food is different, yet deep down still the same. Story 9. One day I was taking a shower with my wife, and I discovered that she washes her underpants in the shower and uses the newly washed underpants as sponge to help to clean her body. I said WTM, and she said that her mom taught her to do that. And just like that, I found that females on her family have this weird shower tradition. Edit, bad grammar. Edit 2, for those asking, my wife is Hispanic. Answer: wonder if she's Hispanic. My family used to do this when I was younger. But as we got older, we kind of just started taking everything off to the dirty pile and used rags. Some of the older folks would tell us to wash our underpants in the shower, but this was all mostly because we were poor growing up, and even most clothes washing would be out of a bucket. Story 10. I shoot private pictures, also rarely use public toilets. Edit, no, I don't strip down in public. My siblings pointed it out when I was a teen. Also am male. Story 11. I shake milk jugs before pouring a glass or over cereal. I was raised on a dairy farm, so it was necessary with fresh milk. Was about 30 before someone asked why, and I had to think for a minute before I realized I didn't need to with store-bought milk. Story 12. Anytime I hear something mundane doing a rhythm or tone, like a coin falling or someone coughing, I just repeat it whistling. It makes everyone laugh now. Story 13. My girlfriend thought it was weird how often I change the volume while watching TV. I never thought it was weird, but then I realized that I get it from my dad. Story 14. I talk to every animal I meet in French, my first language. I don't know why I do this, but someone pointed it out when I met their new dog for the first time. Story 15. In a group conversation, I sometimes stay silent for literally 30 minutes and start talking again, like nothing. Realized with quarantine, where I suddenly talk and people get surprised I was still in the voice chat after 15, 20, 30 minutes of not even a word. Story 16. Whenever I touch or bump something, especially on accident, I feel like I have to repeat that action on the same spot on the other half of my body. Now it's getting to the point where my brain just does it without consulting me first, and it's gotten me some weird looks. Comments: edit, wow. Thanks for the gold. Answer: that's real OCD. Society has joked about OCD for so long, it has become a joke and aimed at mostly clean freaks. But actual OCD is having to perform an action or a series of actions to form a routine, and you cannot control it. In severe cases, not doing it can cause a meltdown. Most people are not that severe, but it can still be anxiety-inducing. Story 17. One day, my husband raised his arm to put around me while I was sitting on the couch, and I instantly flinched away from him. My brother-in-law was shocked and instantly thought that my husband might be hitting me when nobody was around. We laughed it off because he would never do such a thing. He responded with, "She does it every time. I'm just used to it by now." I didn't even realize that I did it. Mind you, I did come from an abusive childhood, so my reflexes are a little defensive. He also pointed out that I am super jumpy, and even the lightest of noises make me do a little freak out. Story 18. When I was a kid, I used to scratch my head so much that I would have bald spots. It wasn't itchy or anything. It just felt like something I needed to do. I'm an adult now, and I stopped, but I have no idea why I used to do that. Story 19. When I started sleeping with my lady friend, she told me I have night terrors. I never knew, as I don't often remember my dreams. Answer: somewhat related, I have REM sleep behavior disorder. Was a violent sleeper up till about age 27. I once was having a nightmare that I was trying to fight off someone trying to violation a friend. In IRL, I kicked my bedroom wall at full force, which caused a hairline fracture in my big toe. Another time at age 22, my GF and I had fallen asleep on a sofa, so we were all entangled with each other. At some point, I started having a nightmare that I was being jumped, and I eventually got back control and did a rear naked choke, both in the dream and IRL. She woke up terrified, thinking I was trying to eliminate her. I was horrified when she woke me and told me what happened. We are still together 10 years later, and I don't have many instances of violent sleep anymore. Story 20. I can shimmy my glasses from the tip of my nose to the bridge using only face muscles. Everyone thought I had a weird twitch. I like to think I'm just efficient. Story 21. I sneak up and scare people, unintentionally. I've been given the nickname Ninja Nate because I move in and out of rooms without being detected. I close doors quietly. I don't hum, whistle, single, or generally talk when I walk through the house. And I walk so silently that no one can hear my footsteps. This has led to repeatedly scaring people who don't hear me coming, especially when they suddenly turn around or I ask them a question with their back turned to me. I try to get into people's line of sight before approaching them, but inevitably I will give someone a fright because they didn't see or hear me approaching. Sorry to all my friends and roommates that I've surprised over the years. It's something I've picked during my childhood to avoid being seen or heard because I don't want a verbally abusive parent to shout at me for doing something wrong, like waking up in the middle of the night to get a glass of water. Answer: I've actually tried to change my gait so as not to frighten people. I drag my feet a little when I'm in work. I think it's referred to as schlepping, to alert people to my presence. It's that or where else they're going to tie a bell around my neck like a cat. My kidhood wasn't abusive, but I certainly wasn't encouraged to take up space in us, so to speak. Edit. Turns out I don't know the correct usage of schlep at all. TL. Story 22. I pick at my lips when I'm stressed out. I've done it since I was a kid, so my mom always gets mad when she catches me doing it. LOL. I try to use chapstick to break the habit, but I always end up doing it without even realizing. Like if I'm watching a suspenseful movie or texting someone about something urgent, anxiety-inducing. Story 23. My voice. When I was working in research, a few of us happened to be chatting with a speech pathologist. Someone suggested that he analyze our speech. When he got to me, he kept asking if I was sick or had allergies that day. Turns out my voice is naturally hyponasal. It sounds like my nose is stuffy all the time. I don't mind it, it's just my voice, but I didn't know anything was unusual about it until that moment. Story 24. When I'm about to drink something, I always stick my tongue out a bit. I didn't know I did it until a friend pointed it out. I also sometimes unconsciously stop breathing, and when I realize it, it's difficult to start breathing again. My cousin woke me up in the middle of the night because she stopped hearing me breathing. I think that it comes from my really bad memory. Story 25. When I was a kid, I learned that if you say the ABCs while you hold your Oreo in milk, it's the perfect softness, crispiness, and doesn't completely fall apart in the milk. To this day, I will whisper the ABCs under my breath. I did this once in front of my ex and he stopped. He stared at me horrified and asked me why I was chanting at my Oreos. I guess he couldn't quite hear what I was whispering to my Oreos and was freaked out that I had some evil Oreo ritual or something. Story 26. Not my habit, but in high school, I had a very dear friend who would throw his phone behind his back, up in the air, and catch it when it fell over his shoulder, without fail every single time. It scared the shoot out of me, considering my clumsy old self would definitely have dropped it. He would also randomly deeply inhale with his thumbs at his nose, and also when we'd eat together, whether it had been at my house or at school, he would save exactly one bite of each item on his plate tray until the end of his meal, and then eat those bites. I miss him so much, but we went down different paths and don't talk much anymore. He was the coolest dude I knew. Story 27. To myself, running conversations through my head. A few words will slip out every once in a while. Story 28. When someone sneezes, I have to say, bless you. Even if I hear a sneeze in a public place and I'm not near the person and I know they won't hear it, I still whisper it under my breath. I kind of knew it was weird, but my boyfriend pointed it out when we were out to dinner, and I was whispering, bless you. Guess he thought it was creepy. Story 29. Asking permission to go to the toilet. If I'm in someone's house that I'm not used to being in, I'll ask, can I use your bathroom? Or something like that. One day someone decided it would be funny to say no, and that's when my mates found out that I won't go if they say no. I'll just sit back down. Story 30. I tap the lid of the can 3 times before I open it when I drink Coke Barrette. I have no idea why I do it, or even that I was doing it until I was at a ring dunk and someone handed me a beer and I tapped it and got asked about the habit. They assumed it was for luck, so I went with that instead of me being a weirdo. Story 31. I pace a lot. Sometimes I just have to take 5-10 minutes and pop some music in and walk. My sister and her husband stayed over with my family over the holidays, and I guess they saw me doing it. They made fun of me for it, like just sort of joking, not anything too harsh, but I genuinely can't help it. I get very anxious if I can't do it. Story 32. I eat too fast. I can finish the same amount of food my wife eats in half the time it takes her. Others have pointed this out too. I don't think it's weird, but it helped me finish my food quicker while in basic training. Answer. I too eat uncomfortably fast for most people. I used to order 2 entrees at the diner, like say fried eggs and a grilled cheese sandwich. I would finish them both before my friend, who is a slow eater, was done putting ketchup and salt and jelly on all his food. As a fun joke, we'd pretend to order one of my entrees for any friend who was passed out tipsy in the booth. When the waitress brought their food, I'd quickly eat it before she came back with the rest of the plates. So to the waitress, it would appear she served the food to an unconscious person who somehow woke up, ate the food, and passed back out in the time it took her to go back and forth to the kitchen. Story 33. I don't even need someone to mention it to know it's weird. I talk to myself, but like a conversation with myself. More like a conversation with an imaginary audience. Edit. Not like a conversation with myself. Story 34. So my inner wrists are really sensitive in a good feeling way, so I touch them a lot to soothe myself. Significant others always touch them too because they know how much I like it. Never thought it was weird until I realized nobody else understands the sensation. I'm talking about plenty of people have thought it was weird, lol. Story 35. I pick on the skin around my nails and also the skin on my feet. I was first peeling dead skin, and now I can't stop peeling skin off my feet or hands. Story 36. Someone will say something to me like at the end of a work shift, and I won't respond until the next time I see them. And then they've forgotten about the comment they said just because it took me a few hours to process what they meant. For example, coworker and I were talking about the gym, and I said, yeah, you're just as thin. And she replied, no, I'm round. And it took me the next day to tell her she wasn't round SMH. Story 37. I need to be distracted while eating. If I don't look at my phone or PC screen, even when really hungry, I will be unable to finish even a small amount of food I have on my plate because I will feel full and then get hungry again after 5 minutes. While distracted, I eat slowly, in my own pace, and then don't get hungry again for hours. I noticed it at my aunt's place once when Dad told me to stop looking at my phone while having dinner. In the end, I ate half of a chicken breast and felt sick, the same way you feel after overeating. Story 38. I talk to myself. Not just simple words, but full-blown convos. This all started with just simple convos in my head, but after a while it unconsciously evolved to me talking out loud. My mother thinks that I need therapy because she's worried that I'd end up talking to some demon and attempt to eliminate people. Answer. Husband has full-on conversations. Many are arguments and include hand gestures, facial expressions, and eye rolling. He works in an extremely frustrating job, and this helps him process. He looks crazy for sure, but he doesn't talk to demons, except some of the assholes he works with, I guess, and hasn't eliminated anyone. Also, we live in NYC, so he fits right in on the subway. JK. He only does this at home, I think. Story 39. Talking to cats on the street. I look at a cat and just meowed, like seeing an old friend. Sometimes they meow back and voila, we have a conversation. My friends think I'm weird for meowing at cats while they talk to their pets in their native tongue. Cats don't speak human language, so why should I talk to them with mine? Answer, yep, but I've always done this. Even as a kid, I knew more cats in the neighborhood than I did people. I'm the only person I know who can see a random cat I've never seen before, start up a conversation with it, and within minutes have it rapidly trotting over to be patted. Yes, I'm that person who gets told, oh, you'll never see Miss Buttons. She always hides when people come over. And meanwhile, Miss Buttons has already decided I am her new napping spot. Story 40. Remembering random things people tell me about themselves. I began to realize it was creepy after people reacting badly to it. Answer, I've been friends with someone for 12 years and barely remember their birthday, but I can remember all kinds of tiny little random things. I too had to stop telling people these things because they thought it was creepy, but I couldn't understand why. I just thought it was interesting, and I always wanted someone to do that with me because it would make me feel important. So I thought they would appreciate it. They didn't really, lol. So now I just keep it to myself. Story 41. I thought I was the only one that would look for the biggest clipping after clipping my nails and bend between my fingers until I saw George Carlin joke about it. Story 42. I talk to my dog and say his replies with a different voice back to me all the time. Or if someone else talks to him, I will answer the question for him. Me. Who's a good boy? Me and my dog voice. Me. Story 43. Blowing really hard out my nose when I'm stressed. I only realized people don't do that when I started getting weird looks from classmates. Story 44. I love eating spaghetti just with butter. I'm not thinking that's weird anymore, BTW. The Italians have a name for this. Spaghetti al burro. Often there's some cheese involved, but not necessarily. Some of them do that too. Story 45. Nail biting, legs shaking, spacing out, looking left and right constantly. My mom pointed it out to me the other day. She explained that those are all anxious habits. Also excessive body cracking. If it can crack, I'll crack it. Also an anxious habit. Story 46. I sometimes just play a random scene from a movie, like talking to myself but acting. Don't know when that started. Story 47. I eat things separately. For example, I would eat the chicken then the broccoli. I didn't know that was weird until my cousin pointed it out, but I still do it out of habit. Story 48. I fold my right ear over backwards while I read and my wife always freaks out about it. It's become such a habit that I don't even realize I'm doing it until she points it out to me. Story 49. I have restless leg syndrome, but it extends to my hands and feet specifically. I run my fingernails underneath each other constantly and cross-snap my toes. Girlfriend gets annoyed when do dinner movie night and she sees me doing those things. Just constant movement that I never notice until pointed out. Story 50. When I'm talking about changes I'd like to make to society, I never say, if I ruled the world, but instead say, when I rule the world. I never actually noticed that I did that until my brother pointed it out to me. Story 51. I leave the best from the food at the end. Eating hamburger is like archaeology. I strip everything that's not meat and deal with it. And then, when there's only me and the meat, I am happy. Story 52. I have a tendency to anthropomorphism objects. So if I drop like a cup, I will apologize to it as if I heard it. Also, I still buy stuffed animals and assign them personalities and backstories. I'm in my 30s, so I'm way too old for this kind of stuff. Story 53. Something I didn't even realize I was doing until someone pointed it out is I eat burger Southern sandwiches in a circle shape. So if I have a burger, I eat all the way around the edges and then do another circle and another until I only have one bite, the very center left to eat. Story 54. I wipe myself down with my hands before I get out of the shower. I genuinely have no idea how I'm the weird one of my friends for doing this. It just seems so much more efficient and clean than walking out of the shower dripping wet. Story 55. I cool down my toast in the freezer before adding butter because I don't want it to melt. Many have been appalled when they learn that about me. Story 56. I have a lot of pets, so there is a lot of fur in my house no matter how often I vacuum. I have a habit of blowing on the end of plug-in cables to remove possible fur. My friends saw me do it and yelled, asking if I just blew on it. I had to explain that fur gets everywhere. Story 57. When making tea or coffee, it has to be stirred anti-clockwise 25 times, then 5 taps of the spoon on the rim of the mug. If it's coffee, depending on how well the coffee has dissolved in the liquid, I may stir an additional 5 times, but this will also result in an extra tap on the rim of the mug. Always has to be a 5.1 ratio of stirs to taps. Drives the wife wild. Story 58. I put Parmesan cheese on my waffles. Accidentally sent a picture of that in the group chat, and I've literally never lived it down. Story 59. Kissing someone when you meet them. I did it to my 5th grade teacher because it was a custom in my country, and my friend was the one to tell me that they don't do that here. Story 60. I bite my toenails. I was never told by my parents to clip them, so I started biting them. I am now 30 and didn't find out how weird it was until I got married a few years ago. Story 61. Whenever I accidentally bump into someone, I always feel the need to apologize. People always tell me not to apologize because it's no big deal, but it feels wrong to accidentally touch someone and not say sorry. Story 62. I stare at people to see the colors I can see on them. It's to help me with lighting because I draw a ton. Did you know most of the time you have a lot of purple and blue in your face? Story 63. I think out loud sometimes and people think I'm talking to myself, but there isn't any conversation, just my thoughts, vocalized. It's not normal, but I find it incredibly annoying when it's obvious I'm not having a conversation. No, I'm alone, and I'm not talking to anyone, but people think I'm having a conversation with people who aren't there. It's like, maybe listen, you judgmental fudge idiot. I'm my own therapist. I need to verbalize things to hear and remember them. It's a coping mechanism I developed in 2016-ish after leaving the West Coast and experiencing horrible social isolation. Story 64. Besides my weird sleeping habits, I always smell my food before I eat it. I do this subconsciously, mainly to avoid anyone tricking me into eating shredded coconut green peppers raisins, but now it's an ingrained habit that my SO finds very insulting. I've tried to be more conscious of it, but I just can't stop. Major trust issues with mystery ingredients. Story 65. I've got crazy expressive eyebrows. When I'm singing a song in my head, I apparently match the beat with them, vacillating between the two. This week's song has been Zombie by the Cranberries. Story 66. I used to talk to the dishes as I loaded them in the dishwasher and placed all the utensils in by twos so none would be lonely in the dark. Story 67. I pick my eyebrows when I'm stressed out. I don't know why. I also like to hear them break, like when I grab one and it splits in half instead of the whole hair coming out. Love that. This one time I broke my hand, couldn't get EI, couldn't work, lost my home, so stressed I ended up picking off one whole eyebrow, SMH. Story 68. I can't have the volume on the TV at an odd number. Just can't do it. Girlfriend pointed this out to me, which made me much more comfortable pointing out to her that she doesn't put her hot sauce on her food. When eating Mexican food, she takes a bite of a burrito, then takes a sip of the hot sauce from the portion cup. What? Story 69. My wife noticed that I would flick my thumb toe using my long toe whenever I think. She found that when I was in an argument with her. And then she noticed again when I was watching tutorials on YouTube. I came to know this when I was 32 years old. I then checked my whole family, both father's and mother's side, to see if anyone in our family did it. Couldn't find anyone in the family who did that. After a few months, my wife found that my son, 3 years old, did the same when she was teaching him to count. Funny incident while teaching my son to count. My son likes cars, so my wife would keep cars in a line and would ask him to count the cars. Then she would ask him to do it with drawings on paper. My son would count along. Then sometimes he can't count and would look at my wife's face and look very confused. Later one day, he came up to us with one of his cars and asked if that car is 1, 2, or 3. I asked my wife to stop teaching him. Story 70. My siblings and I kiss my parents on the lips. We kiss our extended family on the cheeks. I grew up in the American Midwest and had no idea that this was weird until my fiance mentioned it to me. Story 71. I have to make sure that my food doesn't touch on my plate. If there is a potluck or something, I will use multiple plates to fit everything without touching. Story 72. I have a habit of impersonating Tom Hardy. And I don't mean his normal voice. I mean like that voice he does in his roles like the Cray twins in Legend or Alfie Solomons in Peaky Blinders. It'll just come out of nowhere. I'll be walking with my friends and we'll just suddenly go, "You want to take a look at my bakery?" I don't even have to think about it. If you don't know what I'm talking about, just look up one of the roles I've said and you'll get what I mean. Story 73. I automatically associate colors to every single number and letter every time I see them. It's involuntary and the colors haven't changed my entire life. For example, 4 is always royal purple, F is orange, etc. It's not so much a habit as a condition, synesthesia, technically, but I had no clue that it was normal until I mentioned around 4 years ago that a certain number had colors that reminded me of a forest and nobody knew what I was on about. Story 74. This is like the 3rd comment I've posted on here, LOL, but sometimes I forget to breathe. This causes me to just randomly inhale or exhale, and it sounds like a sigh. So I'll be listening to someone talk to me, and then it'll sigh. I always have to explain it to them, and I still haven't found someone who relates to this. Story 75. I tend to gesticulate quite a lot while talking, but apparently one of my gestures that I never even thought about is somewhat strange. One of my friends commented on that when I was like 17 or so. Then nothing. Years after that, the lecturer of rhetorics in the university teaching us to present our theses told me that my gesture is quite unusual. To this day, I have no clue why. Story 76. When it's raining, I hold my hand up when I leave a building to check if it's still eating. I realize it looks weird when an old lady walked the stairs up and a friend, though, I want her to kiss my hand, and other, though I'm doing the Hitler grew. Story 77. I have the problem that when you're one of my best friends and I feel very safe around you when writing on WhatsApp, I always feel like I'm lied to or ignored, and I lost all of my good friends because of it. Yesterday, I wrote a long text to one of those friends that I've lost, explaining me and saying, sorry. I thought she will block me instantly without reading the text, but she said that she is happy I wrote her what I felt and why, and that I said sorry. In a month or so, I want to ask her if we can meet one day, because I would like to talk to her in person. Although I'm not thinking she will say yes, but let's see. Edit. Also, I have to listen to a podcast or have a friend in a PSN party while gaming, or I will be scared and paranoid. Story 78. Eating kiwi skins. I think they taste good, and the sourish taste perfectly sets off the sweetness of the kiwi. Story 79. I have always said, see you inside the morning. I still get shoot for it 10 years after I realized how dumb I was. Story 80. Having to wash my feet before going to bed. I walk barefoot around the house but can't sleep without washing my feet first. Story 81. When I'm watching something on a screen or a play and am concentrating on it, I turn my head slightly to the right and squint my left eye. It looks super weird. I didn't realize I did it until I was in high school and someone made fun of me. If I notice myself doing it, I stop. But as soon as I stop thinking about it and go back to concentrating on what I'm watching, I'm doing it again. Story 82. Dipping pizza in barbecue sauce, including BBQ pizza. In fact, my cousin thought it was so weird that she took a picture of it and sent it to her friends. Story 83. I eat really fast. Like I would tell my friends, okay, I'm gonna go eat dinner, and then come back in 3 to 4 minutes, and it used to shock them. Dinner usually consists of a bowl of soup and meat with some garnish. Story 84. I say things 2 times just like the guy in Goodfellas, but not quite as noticeable. I didn't even notice I did it or started doing it, not really sure, until I was in my 30s and someone pointed it out. Story 85. I'm 5-10 minutes early to every event or place I go to. People find this extremely unsettling, I guess. Story 86. When I'm eating French fries or chips, I have to alternate sides I'm eating on. Like if I chew one fry on the left side, then the next fry has to be chewed on my right side. So weird, but I have done it for a very long time. I think I noticed this habit. Another one is my toes get claustrophobic. Extremely weird, but I will stretch them because they get claustrophobic. Not exactly sure how to explain this without it sounding very weird. My mom was the one to point it out. Story 87. I like to sit on my left hand while eating with my right and never noticed until my friends started laughing out of nowhere. Story 88. I chew my lips like I bite them and tear pieces off. It causes me to bleed sometimes, but I've never seen anything weird until someone seemed concerned by it. Story 89. I always smell fruit before I eat it. Not like intense, just like a little sniff, because I can usually tell how it'll taste by the smell. Obviously, I don't do it out in public since that could be unsanitary, but mostly at home. One day, I picked up an apple and sniffed it in front of my friends, and now they all make fun of me for it, but I gotta tell if it's good somehow. Story 90. I touch my eyebrows constantly. Well, I say touch, but really I mean more like petting or stroking and tugging a little bit. It helps me relax and think and organize my thoughts, helps soothe my anxiety. I've been doing it since I can remember, and as a teen, I remember my dad gesturing at my stepmom about how fudge weird it was, like he was exasperated. It's probably not the best habit. Parts of my eyebrows don't grow in all the way, because of it, lol, but I don't know how to stop. Story 91. I have a habit of fiddling with my earrings, sliding the backs of them up and down the stem of the actual earring. I don't even realize I'm doing it, but my mom always tells me to knock it off. I've lost more than one earring from sliding the back too vigorously and accidentally making it pop off. Also, when I'm really concentrating on something, I purse my lips in a weird duck lips way. Story 92. A friend noticed that I sort of swish whatever I'm drinking around in my mouth for a split second before swallowing it. I guess having a dry mouth and a stomach full of water is part of life for them. It feels unsatisfying if I drink something and my mouth isn't more moist than it was before I took the drink. Story 93. Whenever I'm reading and an expression a character is making is described, I make that expression to see what the author meant by it. I saw something similar on another thread, so maybe I'm not the only one who does this. Story 94. My dad's side of the family have a habit of biting and chewing on their tongues, usually when they were doing work. I do it all the time and eventually had people realize what I was chewing on and tell me that I'm weird for it. Never thought as weird until then. I've also had teachers think I was chewing on gum, in which some cases I got in trouble for it. Story 95. My sister licks her hands to wipe her feet before she gets in bed. She didn't think it was weird until I stayed with her one night at uni, and I was like, what the hell are you doing? Story 96. When I make store-bought pizzas, I rearrange the pepperonis so that when I cut the pizza, none of the pepperonis get cut. Story 97. Know me, but my SO has a terrible habit of chewing his cuticles, but it's like a gateway to him, chewing half the skin off his fingers and fingertips. I can hear him doing it all the time and have to tell him to stop so he doesn't bleed. Never seen someone do that before, but I love him anyways. Story 98. I like to eat my cookies warm and moist, choc chip. So when I'm about to eat some that were baked a few days ago, I'll run a very small water stream from the tap and quickly pass the cookies under it so they get a few drops, then microwave them, warm and moist again. My wife and nephew poked fun at me until they tried it. Works like a charm. Story 99. When I'm trying to fall asleep, I can only turn one way. If I'm on my right side and want to turn to my belly, I have to do a 3/4 turn. I've tried to force myself to turn the wrong way and I couldn't sleep for hours. Story 100. Every night when I'm asleep, I watch Family Guy. I must have watched every episode 1,000 times, honest to God, and tonight when I lay down, I'll watch Family Guy. Sometimes I don't even watch, I just listen. It's a mental habit. When I was young, I was sort of physically abused, and when Family Guy came on, it made me feel comfortable. And I'd laugh. I was maybe 6 or 7 when the abuse started and stopped around 17, but now I'm 22, and it still makes me feel comfortable. I literally can't stop. I have all episodes on my laptop, and I pay for a Hulu subscription, all in the name of Family Guy. Haha. It's crazy. I try to watch other shows, but before I lay down to sleep, I change whatever I'm watching to Family Guy. Story 101. As a kid, I would dot my Is with hearts because I thought it was cute. Then one of the assistant teachers in the class called me out on it. My mom was a teacher at the same school I was going to, and she talked to her, but I still never did it again. On a related note, I drew doodles on all my assignments or notes from like middle school until even now in college. My favorite teacher in high school wrote a comment on a very big drawing on the back of a paper I turned in. I felt weird after, apologized, and told him I would stop, but he assured me it was fine and that he enjoyed them. He was such a nice man. Story 102. I was hanging out with a friend and we got hungry. She thought it was weird that I like to stand while I eat. Story 103. I eat chocolates in little tiny bites and basically let them melt in my mouth. I started doing this in high school to try and manage my portions because otherwise I'd eat like an entire bag of chocolates in a sitting. This way it takes me like 20 minutes to finish one small chocolate. Think like those little wrapped Dove chocolates or Hershey's Kiss. A couple months ago, my friend was over and we were tipsy watching Netflix and I busted out my Dove chocolates. I bit off a corner and handed it to her, thinking she might also want a bite. She flipped out because I gave her a chocolate with a bite taken out of it. Then like 10 minutes later, I had the audacity to ask her if there was any of that chocolate left. Apparently, most people think these are bite-sized already. She won't let me live this down. Story 104. Taking everything apart. If it's in my hands, I'll take it apart and put it back together until I put it down or someone takes it from me. My girlfriend will usually hand me something and preface it with, "Don't fudge with it first." Story 105. I apologize to inanimate objects. If I hit something or if I stub my toe on the table and swear at it, I say almost immediately, "Hey man, sorry." Also, for some reason, straws freak me out. I realized one day that when you drink from a straw, you drink the top of the drink last, and I overthink it because that's weird to me, and somehow start thinking about space monsters eating stars. I don't use straws. Story 106. I itch my nose by smashing my palm into it and vigorously rubbing it in circles so the cartilage makes weird popping sounds. My mom does it too. Didn't think it was weird till my ex-boyfriend saw me do it and went, "That's what that sound is? Why do you do that? Doesn't it hurt?" It's just how I itch my nose, and no, it doesn't hurt. Story 107. I walk real quiet. Real quiet. I scare people at work, home, and in public daily because they don't hear me coming, so when they turn around and I'm there, it's a surprise. My mom used to take a lot of naps, and if mom was napping, you did not want to be the reason she woke up prematurely. I figure that's where it comes from. Story 108. Chapstick. I have a designated chapstick at work, rooms I frequent, in my car, a couple extra in my purse for emergencies. Everyone makes fun of me for it, and they think buying it as a gift is a joke. But really, I've been stockpiling that shoot. Story 109. My family has two microwaves, the cooking microwave and the snack microwave. Cooking microwave is a normal microwave for heating stuff up, and the snack microwave is only used for storing Pop-Tarts, granola bars, and similar stuff. Never thought anything of it until my friends laughed at me saying it's in the snack microwave. Story 110. When I'm really schmacked and taking shots, I blow on it like it's hot. I have no clue why, and it just kind of happens. Story 111. As a kid, if someone else touched absolutely anything at all in my room, even if they didn't actually move it, I often had to pick up said object again and place it back down to make sure it was in the right place. Didn't think twice about it until a friend noticed and asked if I was OCD. Story 112. Playing snooker with the left hand. I was raised dexterous and noticed my ambidexterity after my grandpa said I was a lefty when we were playing snooker. I think it's more in habit to play like this because I am still right-handed in the end. Story 113. My family keeps our bread in the fridge. I didn't realize this wasn't normal until my girlfriend pointed out to me. Story 114. I predetermine the best bite of food in my whole meal and save it for last. Sometimes this means I have to create the bite, like saving a few pepperonis from a slice of pizza to stack on the best dough and cheese part. Story 115. I once walked into my grandparents' dining room during one of their Christmas parties, and my grandpa yelled, "See!" She walks into the room like a proper middle child. You can tell she thinks she's better than everyone in here just by the look on her face. I never realized it till then, but when I'm around family, I do walk into rooms like I'm the best person there. Story 116. Pick things up with my feet. It comes in super handy when you've dropped something. You don't have to waste effort bending down. Story 117. I can never just stand normally. I have to cross my legs, hold my wrist, play with my fingers, tuck a leg under the other, hold my side with the opposite hand, or have one leg up while sitting, etc. Story 118. Chewing on my hair and on TV remotes and on pencils and on cords and on the skin under my nails too, and on practically everything else I can. Story 119. I write everything as a new message like this when I'm texting people. I really didn't think it was weird until someone pointed it out, lol. Story 120. Less habit, but I cannot drink booze at home. Half of Mike's and I get room spin and pukey. I go out with mates and I'll drink you under the table. Didn't really notice this until a few years ago when I was talking with my brother, and he said he'd largely quit drinking since he had kids. He doesn't get to go out anymore, and drinking at home makes him sick. Story 121. I put milk into my mug before pouring on hot water, only with coffee granules though. If you pour boiling water straight into granules, it burns the coffee and makes it bitter. It tastes way better milk first. I used to think it was logical until a work colleague asked me why I did it, and then spent the rest of the shift looking at me in an odd way. Then it just became another one of Pink's weird quirks. Fudge knows what the other weird quirks are. Story 122. I drink really slowly, like really slowly. I take a glass of water and drink for a minute. I also have to sit or lean against something when I'm drinking. It pisses my aunt off every time she takes me to a restaurant. Story 123. Whenever I drink or eat anything, during the action of putting it in my mouth, I close my eyes. I never noticed it before some guy pointed it out to me, which was weird, but I later learned he had a crush on me. Also, I'm sure plenty of you do this too, just never noticed it. Story 124. When I'm at work or focusing on a painting or project, I'm an artist. I narrate everything I do as if I'm teaching someone, usually in my head, but sometimes out loud, in an English accent which I do not naturally have. I don't know why, but my inner voice is 20 my normal Canadian voice in 80 English accent. No one has mentioned it as I never do it out loud unless I'm alone, but I've asked friends if they do something similar. So far, no one else does. Story 125. I smell everything apparently. I don't notice that I do it, but my best friend says it's especially bad with food. Story 126. So in our family, you have to yell Sasquatch when someone farts. My daughter thought every family did this. Story 127. Picking my hairs in my fingers and ankles, easiest places to access in everyday life. My stepmom was worried about it. Turns out it's called trichotillomania and is actually considered a form of self-harm. Went to the GP about it and was told to get counseling through my college. College did one session with me. Because I didn't specifically pull hair from my head eyelashes, they waved me off and said I was fine. By that point, I had been doing it for 7 years, so it didn't personally bother me too much, apart from having some breakage in the skin from it and feeling stressed, annoyed, anxious when I had too much hair on my knuckles. So IDK, story 128, as a guy sitting down to take a piss. Didn't know that was an odd thing to do till college. It's way more comfortable than standing. I don't get why more people don't do it. Story 129. Okay, so I have multiple that might not be normal. 1. I make full-on stories in my head whenever something is boring. I'll talk to myself too. 2. I seem to need to multitask a lot because I'll get bored otherwise. It could be listening to music while working or watching a video while reading, etc. Story 130. I randomly sit up, eyes open, and talk to people when I'm asleep. When I was at a sleepover in like 6th grade, I made eye contact with a girl and threatened her. She left at 1 a.m. Story 131. This might be more common than I think, but sticking my head down close to the paper when I write. I blame this on the fact that I need my glasses, but I find myself looking over them a lot. IDK. Does anyone else who wears glasses do that? Story 132. I can't fall asleep with my wrists showing, particularly underside, for fear of vampires and demons finding easy prey. Tuck those wrists in, people. Story 133. Cracking the joints in my fingers against my face, usually my jaw. It's just an easy, solid surface to do it on, you know? My friend teases me for it though, ha ha ha. Story 134. During the dinner, my grandfather used to keep in his cheeks chewed food that he was enjoying while he continued with the rest of the plate. It's a little strange, but I tried it, and it really works to enjoy the flavor of food. Story 135. I talk to my cat, like full-blown conversations. I know he doesn't understand, and I know it sounds crazy, but it's comforting to just talk to him. One day my dad walked in on me talking to him about where I should apply for a job, and he thought I was crazy. Edit. I just imagine the things he would respond to me with, and I respond back to him. I'm not crazy, I promise. Story 136. I rub my nipples a lot, day, night, whenever. Shoot feels really good. Never in front of anyone, of course. Story 137. I notice patterns in people and certain things very quickly to an almost robotic extent. Some of it stems from anxiety, always needing to be one step ahead. I used to be very good in sales because I could sense who was going to waste my time and how someone would react would most likely buy, how to get to the right person to talk to very quickly, know if an objection was bullshit and read between the lines, etc. Drove my manager nuts because despite being successful, she didn't approve of me sounding negative or having metrics that were way off the rest of the team. In every team meeting, I was an outlier that threw off her statistics on call numbers and made her look bad. I eventually quit because I was tired of all the politics and getting reamed all the time for doing better than the rest of the team with less effort in a more difficult territory. Story 138. I like to use earphones when I'm outside, even when I'm not listening any music, just to avoid random conversation in the street. Story 139. Eating a lot of rice, eating rice. Every day, buying a lot of rice. The rice cooker has never been unplugged because it is always on filled with rice. In my culture, it's normal to have multiple 50-pound bags of jasmine rice at home ready for a rice emergency. We don't just buy those small, tiny bags of rice you see in American grocery stores. I moved to America for school, and my apartment roommates were shook by how much rice I had just in case. At first, they thought I was a culinary student needing all this rice to practice sushi making, but no, it's for me to eat LOL. I had the apartment smelling like jasmine rice every day because I literally grew up like that. The scent of jasmine rice cooking just gives any living space a nice scent. Apparently, I didn't even know I had a rice addiction until I moved to the US. The grocery store cashiers would roll their eyes every time they saw me because my heavy bags of rice would stop the cash register belt. I never considered a budget or limit to how much I would spend on rice. My friends think it's strange that I'll have rice water for breakfast, Rice Krispies for a snack, fried rice and stew for dinner, and rice wine to wash down the fried rice. This all seemed normal to me until I moved to America. So now I've gone from huge 50-pound bags to smaller 25-pound bags. Story 140. I often close my eyes when I hear good music. I learned that was odd quite a few years ago. I only just realized this year that the reason I do it is odd. I do it to kind of see what the music looks like. This led me to learn that I have a form of synesthesia. I knew what the disorder was in the past, but I never considered that I would have it. I just thought the way I experience music is how everyone does. I still don't fully believe that other people don't also see some colors when they listen to music. TLDR, I'm 35, just learned not everyone can see music. Story 141. I bite the skin around my fingernails. It's like almost dead skin, I guess. And it's like biting nails, which I also do, but just around the corners. Story 142. I think and solve problems out loud. I also remember things people say to me for years, even if they forget it. Story 143. I eat ice cream with a fork. My mom always did it, so I do too. I think it works better than a spoon for digging out little chunks of the candy or nuts in the ice cream. Story 144. Someone once pointed out to me that when I'm drinking from a bottle, I drink with the bottle to one side of my mouth, so it's pretty much at a right angle to my face. I'd never really thought about it, but I realized it's because I'm such a bookworm that I do that, so that when I lift the bottle to my mouth, it doesn't get in the way between my eyes and my book. Story 145. I don't eat the part of food that I hold. If I'm eating fries, for example, I'll eat everything of the fry except for the part I'm holding, then set the small piece back on the box and grab another fry. Hamburgers I eat until it's down the last part of bun and meat that I held for the last bite, and then I'll put that part down and end up tossing it. When I was young, I put my fingers in my mouth too much, and my parents told me there were germs on my hand. They said if I kept putting them in my mouth, I'd get sick. I found that to mean that the part of food that I held also had germs, and I shouldn't eat it either. I've tried to stop, but unless I think about it the whole time I eat, I leave a French fry graveyard when I have fast food. Story 146. If you have a bunch of coins in my pocket, I take them out and order them from biggest to smallest, and then put them back in my pocket messed up. Story 147. I have never been able to stop answering my own thoughts out loud and have done so since childhood. I really never saw it as a weird habit until I lived with my spouse. She always thinks I'm talking to her when I do it, and it wasn't until I was around someone for a long period of time that I realized I even do it. Story 148. Pacing. I pace whenever I am not sitting down for the most part. I do it unconsciously. People get really pissed when I do it, like WTF. How does me walking in circles affect you? Story 149. I often think out loud and will occasionally switch from talking to someone to talking to myself seamlessly. My boyfriend has had to learn when I'm talking and when I'm thinking. Story 150. From probably age 4 to 6 up until age 13 or 14, I would often repeat under my breath the last few words I said out loud, directly after finishing the sentence. I never realized I did it until my friends started pointing it out. Story 151. Maybe not so weird, but silly. I used to always wear my keys clipped to one of my belt loops, or just my waistband if no loops. One day, my boyfriend laughed a little and said, "I love when you do that. It's the cutest." Nonplussed, I asked, "Do what?" Apparently, I do a little shimmy to make my keys jingle when checking for them. Never realized. P. Story 152. Every night I count to fall asleep, but I've always had to miss out 3s and 7s because they're the scary numbers to me. And if I think about them at night in the dark, I scare myself involuntarily. I don't think it's that strange, but I know some people do. Story 153. I have this habit of warming up my milk in the microwave before adding cereal to it. Been doing it all my life. Thought it was pretty normal until I came to the US for a study abroad program and was just shamed for it. Story 154. I have this weird thing with even numbers. I really dislike them. If I do something repeatedly, it has to be an odd number of times, preferably 3. When we were kids and my sister hit my shoulder twice in a similar way, I begged her to do it once more. If as a joke she would then hit me a 4th time, I would force her to hit me once more. It's really weird. The even numbers seem somehow too round in my head, even though visually that can't be said generally, and I dislike it. The fact that I'm now 22 is even really frustrating to me. It's 2 of the number I dislike the most next to each other. Story 155. I most often use my phone flashlight instead of flipping the lights on. I didn't think to care if it looks weird until someone mentioned it. Story 156. Working at work. As in, turn up, start a shift, work until the end of the shift, taking whatever breaks are standard, go home. That's what you do at work, right? Apparently that's weird in office settings. Everyone else does things like surf the internet, make phone calls in earlier generations, hang out at the water cooler, make plans to meet up at the bar afterwards, talk about their vacations or family or whatever. I only found out because I worked in a couple of places which tracked productivity, and people wondered how I was completing 4 times the work of anyone else when I never seemed to be going particularly fast. So yeah, actually working during work hours. Bizarre concept, it seems. Story 157. Not me, my older sister. In text, she laughs. Ha 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 ha. Since she doesn't use it often, she mostly sends emojis. I always thought she was just laughing sarcastically at the memes and puns I sent her. I finally confronted her about it, and as it turns out, she just thought it was the right way of spelling it, and no one had ever commented about it. Story 158. Apparently, it's not normal to take a sip of water before the pill. It seems logical to me, though. I don't want pills getting caught in my throat because it's dry, and I don't like tasting them. Story 159. I like to burrow my head into things and didn't know it was weird until I moved in with my girlfriend and she pointed it out. I have a sensory disorder and it's a quick and dirty way to halt overload, so it's always seemed natural. Story 160. I give my dog his own voice, like an accent, and have conversations with him. My hubby does it too, and we will have a 3-way conversation between us and the dog, with both of us talking for the dog and ourselves. We do it with lots of animals and pets. We had friends that thought it was the funniest thing ever. They tried to give their dog one, but it just sounded weird. I also mash my nose flat with my palm and rub it around and around hard when it is itchy. Looks intense. Feels awesome. Story 161. I've always been super flexible, not contortionist level, but I can easily touch my toes, put my feet by his head, scratch my back, zip up dresses. Turns out I have joint hypermobility syndrome and possible heads. This also led me to discover that it's not normal to pop your knee, shoulder, or hip out of its socket and pop it back in by yourself. Story 162. So my mother and aunt are both legally blind and hearing impaired. My 3 siblings and I were raised as seeing eye kids. And as their sight deteriorated over the years, I picked up the habit of pushing my hand along their backs or arms when I move beside or behind them so they know where I am, where I'm going, as I do it. Never thought about it until I had a job outside of the family business and weirded out coworkers and clients by doing it to them too. I've become very self-conscious of it now. Story 163. I play with squirrels by clicking my tongue and snapping my fingers. I didn't realize it was a weird thing to do until an ex saw a really beautiful black squirrel and he wanted a picture, but the squirrel wouldn't stop moving. So I decided to help him out by calling it over. And when it was a few feet away from my feet, I lifted my arm and started snapping my fingers along with the tongue clicking so it would stand up and he can take a photo of its face as well. My ex took the photos and then commented on how he was lucky he had me around to call it over. That day I learned that not everyone can or will play with squirrels. Story 164. It's a weird thing I do at work, massage therapist, and most of my clients are used to it. But I talk to the muscles I'm working on when they're being stubborn. I will just randomly start mumbling, "Mon, it's okay, just relax." "Oh, no you don't. You're going to release now." There you go. Story 165. Not sure if this is a weird habit or if this is just common courtesy, but I always check the toilet for stray pieces of toilet paper or shoot before I wash my hands. If there's stuff in there, then I flush it again. Nobody I know does this except for me, and it's left me very conflicted. Story 166. I re-roll every single soft taco I've ever gotten from Taco Bell. They fold it in half, whereas I prefer them rolled up completely. Been doing this 20 years. Story 167. Sometimes when I put an object down for a minute, I tell it not to move as politely as I can, like it's listening to anything I say. Story 168. I talk to my little sweet pet Max like my boy when he was 2-3 months old. Here is my good little boy. Who is good boy? Is it you? Yes, you are. Yes, you are. What a good little boy. Sometimes I get embellished when someone catches me doing this deeply in the middle of family gathering. Story 169. I use the collar of my shirt to wipe under the bridge of my glasses when they start sliding down my face, or really any time I touch my face, because I dislike touching my face with my hands. No one has ever mentioned it, but I know it looks like I'm blowing my nose into my shirt. Story 170. Having at least 2 drinks with my meal, one of which is always water. I posted that a while ago on here and found out there are loads of people who also do THT, but I remain the only person I know or have met who does this. I don't think it's weird at all, but that doesn't stop people from commenting on it like it's the same thing as dumping mustard in my tea. Story 171. I bite nails, not consciously though. My uncle used to tell me that it's a sign of insecurities and stuff. I'm not proud of this habit because I dislike showing my hands in public. Sometimes I bite too much and it starts bleeding or hurts like a bee. I hope I'm not alone, and if someone came over this bad habit, pleasant help. Story 172. When driving, I will slightly clench my jaw when passing sign or light poles when I think my head is lined up with them. This has been going on since I was 4 or 5. Story 173. When I get excited, I move my hands back and forth in an extremely fast motion. Think of a human version of a hummingbird, and everyone calls me out on it. Story 174. Every morning I add a Purian powder to my coffee and use the non-spoon edge of a spoon to measure out a 12 TSP. I then use that same already dirtied end to stir my coffee. My new coworker looked at me like I had 2 heads when I flipped over my plastic spoon to the non-spoon edge to stir my coffee a few months back. Force of habit, I for sure looked like a dummy out of context. Story 175. I eat the breading off of my nuggets, then dip the pure meat into the sauce. My sister looked horrified. Story 176. Eating the skin off my chicken nuggets first at McDonald's, then dunking the rest in sweet and sour sauce. Story 177. I use the arm of my glasses to itch the inside of my ear and also tend to dig around. My fiance said it's the most crazy thing she's seen, but she doesn't know what she's missing. Story 178. I rarely eat ice cream, but when I do, I blow on it like it is hot before putting the spoon in my mouth. Story 179. Dislike the sound of pouring water. Makes my skin crawl. I figured it bothered everyone. Nope, just me. Story 180. I have a weird thing about the right versus the left side of my body. Sometimes it just feels wrong to pick something up with my right hand, so I go out of my way to use my left one, or it feels wrong to take the first step up a staircase with my left leg, so I do a small step to make sure my right foot hits the first one, and I get annoyed if the right, opposite of wrong leg is not the one to hit the last step. Story 181. I touch the tip of my Q-tip to my tongue, then dab it on my shirt or towel before I clean my ears. It's to dry to insert otherwise. Story 182. When I'm in my car, I talk to myself in different accents. Now it's getting warmer. I forget that people can hear me at red lights when my windows are down. Story 183. I eat my burgers upside down. I'm 29 and only found out recently when a friend started taking the piss. Story 184. Instead of saying laundry, I say wash. I'm from Wisconsin. The first time I ever said that in front of my boyfriend, he couldn't stop laughing and still makes fun of me to this day, but now he's starting to say it. Story 185. Sometimes I cover my mouth when I eat, usually around people I don't know well, or in public, or on a date. It's a leftover eating disorder habit. I never noticed it till someone asked why I did it. Now I just disclose that I'm aware I do it so people don't ask. Story 186. When walking through libraries, hotels, or while wearing my bedroom slippers, I tap metal with the back of my